Hello, and welcome to today's Taking the Leap. And I'm really excited to be here with Stephanie Dalfonzo. Welcome, Stephanie. It's great to have you on Taking the Leap and to be able to have a conversation with you.
Thank
So
you.
we met. I always try to figure out how did I meet this person? And Stephanie and I met through Innovation Women, which is a really great website and somewhat of an organization of women who are speakers and on the one side and who are event organizers on the other side who are looking for great speakers and who want to interact. So that's how we met, and Stephanie reached out to me as I reached out to other people, in the organization to be part of Taking the Leap. So welcome today.
Thank you, Karen. I'm so looking forward to having this conversation. I have a feeling we won't have a problem filling up 30 minutes. It
No, no,
might be
no,
a
no,
hard
no.
5 minutes. Get us to stop.
It's funny. I always make sure that I do like a pre-call with somebody just to get to know them, and I don't even know how long we went on. I think it was not a very short pre-call, that I could tell you. We were on
Correct.
for a very long time. So
Correct.
I hope that you find this conversation as interesting as I did, because I was really intrigued with everything that Stephanie does, and I'm going to open it up to have her tell you a little bit about it. Now, I know that I wrote on there that you're an integrative hypnotist. So I'm
Yes,
hoping
Karen.
that yeah, exactly. I'm hoping you can share what is an integrative hypnotist and really what do you do and how do you do it? So welcome, Stephanie.
Thank you. Okay, so in the spirit of taking the leap, move your bananas to the belt. To listen to your messages, press 1. I was the very first automated voice back in the 1980s when I was celebrity radio DJ Stevie Nicks. So,
Uh-huh.
how do you take a leap from that to being an integrative hypnotist? What is an integrative hypnotist?
I have no idea. And how did you even think of it?
Okay, so it came about out of necessity. My husband had a health crisis. I had to reinvent myself. So this was back in the very early 2000s when I could go to school to be a life coach on the World Wide Web and occasional in-person trainings. So I
Uh-huh.
started doing my training, on the web. And then I really felt this nudge. Go check out hypnosis. And on the first day of the training, everything aligned, Karen. It was like, oh my gosh, this really is what I'm called to do. And so I call myself an integrative hypnotist because hypnosis is one way and one size doesn't fit all. So, if you're driving, if you're listening to the GPS and think about Siri, I was Siri before Siri was Siri, you
Uh-huh.
know,
The
prepare to
voice
turn
behind
left.
the voice.
Yes, right? Prepare to turn left in 1,000 feet. So if you're driving and there's a roadblock, the GPS is going to take you around that roadblock on a different route, right?
Hmm.
So that's why I call myself an integrative hypnotist. I have more trainings than I have appendages on my body. Not because, I needed to get more, but the more I have learned, the more ways I've learned that we can easily make change in our lives. So the very first thing I learned was a lot of people know what tapping is now, emotional
Yeah.
freedom techniques. I learned that back in the 1990s on a corded telephone that was bolted to the wall. So, we're going
You had
back
to
a
have
few
a good
decades.
vision in your head.
Yes, yes. So I learned that back then. And if that's all I knew, I've had clients over the years that are like, that doesn't work for me. So if that's all I knew, then I would fail you if that didn't work for you. So the integrative part of being an integrative hypnotist is I can start down this little path with you. And if that's not working for you, I don't stop and say, oh, well, wait, that's not working. Let's try this. I just can seamlessly guide us into the next lane, which will help you get exactly where you need to go. So, the whole thing about hypnosis, where is it? I had this out the other day. I have a 9-year-old that I just started working with. Can you imagine a 9-year-old and what they think of hypnosis? Don't get too
Yeah.
very sleepy, very
Right, right,
sleepy.
right, right.
So I had this out the other day just to have some fun with him. But all the stuff that we see in the TV and movies, it's just for entertainment purposes. So,
So
Karen,
what
do
that
you?
what is hip so first of all, why were you drawn to hypnosis, number one? And what is it? I mean, I think that's where you're going with this. Am I right?
Yes. Yeah. So why I was drawn to it was at the time, I didn't know that I have such a strong intuition and that I could listen to it and get guidance. I literally heard this whisper of, go check out hypnosis. So I did. I live in Connecticut. And again, this is back in the early 2000s. They're like, oh, I'm looking on the computer and I'm seeing, Caryn, that to become a certified hypnotist, I can go to a training for a weekend and they're going to give me a certificate that says I'm a certified hypnotist. And I was like,
That's a little scary.
I'm not sure that's quite enough training, right? So then I expanded my search. I'm about
Exactly.
an hour and a half outside New York City, and I found this brilliant woman, absolutely brilliant woman who takes this integrative approach. So hypnosis, ooh, it's scary. It's the pocket watch. It's all of that. No, it's not. You've been in and out of hypnosis your whole life, but you don't know it. Have you ever, Caryn, driven
Okay.
somewhere and you get there and like, you don't remember the drive?
All the time.
Right. It happens all the time. Literally, it's called highway hypnosis. When both my kids are now grown and flown, but when my daughter was 16, she came home from driver's ed one night and said, we talked about highway hypnosis because for that period of time, when you're driving and you don't remember it, it doesn't mean you're out of control or whatever. It means that your conscious mind, which is itty bitty, like maybe 5% of your brain, was off thinking about something else. And thankfully, our subconscious mind, our unconscious mind is what keeps us safe, is what is in
Mhm.
charge of all the habitual things. So if our subconscious, we relied on our conscious mind to breathe, we'd be dead, right? You don't think about, I have to breathe, right? We go to sleep and we're still breathing. We're still pumping our blood through our body. So it's simply a focused state of awareness. That is all that hypnosis is. You don't need to be lying down in this relaxed state. Again, this brilliant woman I trained with in the middle of New York City, which is it's overstimulation to me, right?
Uh-huh.
I live almost in the country. So I go into New York City and it's just this cacophony of stuff. And she's teaching us how to do self hypnosis while there's fire engines going on out there. She's teaching people who are
And you
strapped
can
hanging
block
from
it
the
all
subway.
out.
Yes, you are able to just let all that go and focus on where you want to go. And when we can tap into the power of our brain, anything's possible.
So should we be scared when we get to some place when we realize what was I thinking about or what was I daydreaming about or should I really be happy that I had that moment to let my brain sort of relax and be open to thinking as I'm driving? Because I've done, people say, "Oh, where's your best thought?" and thought process, and I always say in the shower and in my car. And it's
Right,
true that there are distractions. There are more distractions in the car today than there are in the shower. But at the end of the day, it's sort of this open space where you can just sort of let your mind wander to a certain extent, good,
yeah.
bad, or otherwise.
And so I would say be happy for that because anytime I can find a moment or moments to be able to connect, I don't care where I am. I don't care if I'm in the car or I'm out on a walk in nature. Anytime I can find an opportunity to connect. And a lot of times with my clients, I have them use that time in the car, whether it's on the way to work or on the way home from work, to let all the other stuff go, to literally be driving home after a stressful day and use that time to imagine that stuff just in the rearview mirror behind you. So when you experience that, now you can think, oh, okay, this is not a bad thing. This is actually a good thing. Another opportunity to think about hypnosis in an everyday occurrence, Caryn, is if you're really into a book or a movie
Mhm.
and someone calls your name and you don't hear them. Like if it's your spouse, your significant other, you may think like, yeah, it's just because it's their voice. But when you're that focused into it and you don't hear someone else calling your name, that's hypnosis. It is simply a focused state of awareness. And my word, kids, anybody who has kids, they're on the video games, they do not hear you. And it's not just because it's mom or dad's voice, it's
Uh-huh.
because they don't hear you.
So you consider video games like hypnosis to some end,
Well,
or they're
it's a trance.
hypnotizing you. They're sort of putting you into that state.
It's a trance, and I will just make one mention of this, and then I will quickly get off my soapbox because I could stay here for hours.
Uh huh.
It's all designed to hypnotize or brainwash us. It's all designed to get us addicted to it. So I'll get off
So
my
it's a bad
soapbox with
thing.
that.
So you're saying the phone's a bad thing.
It has
It has its plus and minus.
less than desirable traits as well as the good stuff.
Okay, so I actually have your book in front of me, and
Thank you.
what I thought was really interesting because haven't read it yet. I just got it in the mail yesterday. However, what I did notice was there were 35 different methods that you actually use. So that really speaks to your integrative, process. But when I thought about what I wanted to say to people about this conversation, I thought, who isn't stressed or have anxiety, not every day and not every moment of every day, but I mean there isn't anyone I know of at least that goes through the day, on any given day, and doesn't feel some level of, oh my god, I'm not going to be able to finish, or oh my god, what do I have to do next, or or they wake up in the middle of the night and it's spinning around in their head. And one of the things that you say is that you can help people go back to sleep and stay asleep and not feel that anxiety, that they're going through during the course of the day. So, of the 35 different ways, and I realize that everybody's different, what are some of the pieces of your work that you have found most helpful to, is it identify, first of all, does it need to be identified by the person as, how do they identify or self-identify as stressed and anxious? And then, when they come to you, how do you then determine what's going to be the best process for them?
So lots of great questions to unpack in there. First of all, you probably didn't notice this, Caryn, but look at the table of contents again and
I
look
did. It's
at,
in alpha order.
yes, it's in alpha order it's purposeful, right? It's first of all, hold it on its side so people can see how thin it is. I
Uh-huh.
purposely wrote this thin book because
It's 100 pages, everybody, just so
there's
we're
another
clear.
book I just ordered that is being returned to Amazon because it's
Hmm.
500 pages. I didn't realize that when I ordered it. If you're feeling stressed and anxious and I give you a book like that, you completely shut down, right? Because it's just
Right.
too much to deal with. So I have 35 different techniques in there and it's all in alphabetical order. So you can just skim through the book and pick out, yawn. What's that? And if you would, Caryn, just yawn with me and
Oh,
I'll explain why. Now, first of all, they're contagious. I yawn and it's going to get you to yawn.
I'm going to
So,
feel sleepy.
so you're going to start yawning in a whole different mindset now, Caryn, because our subconscious mind, I don't have time to go through this exercise I normally would, but our subconscious mind does not know the difference between real and imagined. So whether it's an involuntary yawn because we didn't sleep last night, and at least a third of Americans are not getting enough sleep these days,
Hmm.
and that's like a year out of date, so it's probably more than that now. But whether it's an involuntary yawn like that or a fake yawn, the same thing happens. When we yawn, we're stimulating the vagus nerve, which is the longest nerve in the body. It goes from our brain down
Hmm.
into our belly and circles all of our internal organs. And it stimulates the parasympathetic nervous system. And that is the rest, digest, and relax nervous system. So the more that we can do this throughout the day with really simple things, and you can see it's about as simple as you can get, right? All the techniques in the book are that simple because
Hmm.
simple shifts are what create lasting change. So when we can and empty out a little bit of the stress. And then a little bit later, whether it's another yawn or something else, and we keep doing this throughout the day, then it doesn't build up to the kind of levels. And this is coming from self experience, right? My whole career and the whole book is based on me losing it in the 90s because my anxiety, which I didn't know at the time I had struggled with my whole life, turned into insomnia. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't function. Something very minor set me off,
Hmm.
and I lost it on a bag of Cheetos. For real, a bag of Cheetos. And
Hmm.
so I got medication like most people would. It helped, and then it stopped working. And then I was like, okay, how do I deal with this? So I started doing the research. And so I have found that for me, and now thousands of clients, because I've been doing this for 18 years, that it's not about, okay, muscle your way through the door, through the day. And then when you get home, oh, instead of diving into a bottle of wine or a bag of chips or something,
Hmm.
oh, sit and meditate for 20 minutes. Well, if you don't have a meditation practice already set up, and I say that to you, Zoom goes off and I've lost you. But when it's
Hmm.
like, okay, then we do a little tweak here and a little tweak there. That's how we get to not say goodbye anxiety, hello freedom, because we never experience anxiety. It's a question of we live in an anxious world. The world is on fire. How do we find our way to navigate through it without it overcoming us? And that is by doing these little simple shifts.
Well, obviously the last few years have really, I think, changed people's mental capacity, issues, mindsets. It's been challenging in so many different ways. So, what has been kind of the request? I mean, people are coming to you now probably a lot more frequently and with a lot more requests. What's been the biggest challenges that you've heard that people are facing, and sort of what have been the best ways that you've suggested? I mean, similar to what you just said, but to overcome or to look at those, because I know you do individual, but I also know that you speak to a lot of corporations and businesses and college students. And it's a huge, they're under so much pressure, and everybody's under a different kind of pressure today than they may have been 10 years, even 2 years ago or 3 years ago.
Yeah. And so that's why I present such a different, like a smorgasbord in the book, is because, when I'm dealing with a 9-year-old, obviously I'm dealing with a completely different person than a 53-year-old woman, right? So
Hmm.
it's a question of when I'm working one-on-one, me meeting you where you are. Okay, where are you? And then me using my wisdom and my experience and my intuition as to, okay, where do we go? So the top 3 or 4 things that people have been coming to me is stress and anxiety. Ding, ding, ding. Number one, sleep. Ding, ding, ding. Because all that stress and anxiety, if it's not dealt with during the day, it's cropping up at night. And then, very interesting, I have seen a major uptick in people with fears. If you have a fear or have had a fear for years, whether it's a fear
Hmm.
of flying, a fear of driving over highway bridges, all this other stress has just made it get even more
Hmm.
intense. And people are coming to me and saying, yeah, help, I can't stand this anymore. So all that additional stress is, been pushing on other things that are already there. I have a lovely woman I'm working with right now with a fear of driving over bridges. And, she's had it for years and she's kind of dealt with it. And then, now it's just to a point where it's unmanageable for her.
Right.
But then conversely, I got a 9-year-old. And I really believe, Caryn, that kids, teens, and young adults are the ones who have taken the brunt of what's been going on with, since the pandemic began.
Right.
They've
What about,
lost so much.
re-entry? Somehow I think there's a lag now, but what about re-entry into the workplace? I mean, so many people have been working from home and now they're being asked to come back to the workplace and connect with their colleagues and their bosses and function in a workplace when they've actually been functioning in their own environment. How has that affected their mental state and their mindset?
For a lot of people, very detrimental, because now somebody who's never struggled with social anxiety, now they're coming back and it's like, okay, I've been home in my PJs or in my yoga pants for 2 years,
Hmm.
and how do I connect with people? And then, all the what ifs. And that is probably one of the worst sentences we can ever ask ourselves is, what if? Because what if almost always takes us to the worst case scenario. So again, just a simple little shift, and I don't think this is in the book. And trust me, there's a lot more in here
Right.
than is in the book. Is when you start catching yourself thinking, oh, what if? And it's always the worst case scenario. What if you flipped it to, what if it all works out? Right. So doing that mental dress rehearsal. If anybody loves to listen to podcasts, I highly recommend Mel Robbins' new podcast.
Hmm.
She talks about everything I talk about in these podcasts. And she was talking about, what if it all turns out? What if it all turns out right? And in her most recent episode, she's talking about the neuroscience, which we do not have time for me to get into it. When you
Mhm.
start understanding the neuroscience of paving the way for where we want our thoughts to go, and then that actually becomes our reality, it's incredibly powerful.
So do you look at that as manifesting?
Yes. Yeah. And manifesting not in a woo-woo way or whatever. This is something I've intrinsically known my entire life and didn't really know. I never heard anybody talking about manifesting or law of attraction. And yet, when I was
Mhm.
14 years old, I knew I was going to be a celebrity radio DJ. I knew it. And I manifested that. I made that happen. I literally, this thin, attractive, long haired
That's
14-year-old
self-hypnosis?
girl. I'm sorry?
Was it self-hypnosis?
In a way, yeah. But I didn't know it then, right? It was
Mhm.
it's about looking for where you want to go as opposed to looking where I used to, looking for where you don't want to go. My husband would go on a business trip, Caryn, and I would always go to the worst case scenario. Oh my gosh, what if his plane crashes and he dies and I've got these kids and I've got to raise them on my own? Like, really? Right? I would go there.
Right.
And I don't share that like, oh, poor me, but so people understand that they're not the only ones. There's a
Oh, yeah.
lot of us that had those patterns.
Yeah, I mean, thinking about the worst case, they always say, energy flows where your mind goes, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So if you're focused on the negative, or you're focused on the disaster, or God knows what's going to happen, then you're wasting all your energy in that negative space. And I'm guessing that a lot of the work that you do is trying to flip that around so that you're in that positive space.
Well, and also one of my, I have so many different favorite techniques, but one of them, I'm going to ask you this, and I really want you to like stop and answer it, Caryn,
Okay.
is what's right now?
In terms of,
I'll tell you for me, what's right now is I'm having this fascinating conversation with you. I have a warm home. I have plenty of food in my pantry. I have this sweet doggy down here snoring, right? In this moment, all is well. When we like, what if? It's like, okay, stop. What's right now? When we bring it back into what's right in this moment, there's a lot to be grateful for.
right.
And
And
there's science behind it.
right,
There
right.
is science behind gratitude. Just the act of looking for gratitude drops our cortisol levels, which is the stress hormones, 23%. Just looking for gratitude. Then we go to the feeling, not the thinking, but the feeling of gratitude. And it gets our bodies to start producing dopamine and serotonin, which are the happy hormones. So simple little things, and we can start changing our body chemistry.
So what's interesting is you've kind of brought them together in your book. A lot of people have put out a book around gratitude, or put out a gratitude journal, or a lot of people are focused on one way. What I'm hearing with you is that in your integrative process, you're pulling from a lot of those different ways, and you're finding a way to put a package together for someone that's very unique to them and unique to their needs, and also hopefully, I don't want to say solves, but addresses their challenges and takes them to another level, or to the next level, that helps them, you know, um, come away and solve some of those challenges, or at least minimize them.
To their
Maybe they don't go
emotional
away,
freedom.
but they lessen.
It's about emotional freedom. And emotional freedom is, to me, is recognizing that things are going to come up. There's going to be anxiety in the world. The freedom is recognizing that it's going to come up and knowing that I have so many tools at the ready that it comes up, I know how to deal with it. And that is paramount in what I do with my clients, that I don't just teach you a bunch of techniques and say, okay, now go off, and I help you integrate them into your everyday life. Because, you can take that book, Caryn, and you can put it on your shelf and join the shelf help, right? These shelves that are sagging because we buy so many books and
Right.
programs and stuff, and we put them up there and nothing changes until we actually action them and practice them. And anybody who ever gets to hear me do a presentation, you will hear me say, take action, take action, take action. Because it's not about doing something one time and, oh, magically everything's
Not
fine.
about reading about it either, or just reading about it.
Right. It's about getting those neural pathways and deepening those grooves so that becomes our new default, because we've got these neural pathways that take us into these old habits of anxiety and what if and all of that. So when we start instead laying down these new tracks, well, at first it's just a little thin one, but then the more we do, it's just like if you learn to play the cello or you learn to play soccer. You're not so good at first, but the more you practice, the better you get. A lot of these techniques are what Olympic athletes use.
So, and that's like visualization and sort of seeing them winning at the end or succeeding or finishing or, achieving their goal at the
Yeah.
end of what
Yes.
they're.
And going through all of it. So again, in this podcast from Mel Robbins, I was like thrilled because she's talking my language, talking about how if you're going to go run the New York City Marathon, you don't just sit and visualize crossing the finish line. You sit and go through the whole race. You go through getting up and it's raining, but you get up and lace your shoes on and you go out anyway. You prepare for these possibilities and pushing through it. And you prepare for. I had somebody who was running a marathon, and we created an anchor because she'd hit like the 17-mile mark and get exhausted and want to just drop. And so we created this anchor that
What
she
happens
did.
when you hit that?
That then she got this burst of energy and was able to cross the finish line.
That's great. So, how many years can I ask how many years you've been doing this? And is this your dream business? So, you took this leap, you did something that was completely different from being a DJ and being on the radio and doing all of that. And now you have this incredible business that is affecting and impacting, I think, many people. So, is it your dream? I mean, do you feel the meaning in it? Do you feel fulfilled? And does it make you happy every day when you wake up and do this?
Yes, 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 and more yes. Um, I have been doing this for 18 years. I was certified just about 18 years ago today,
Uh-huh.
actually. And talk about taking a leap. Now, I had no business background. I'm telling you, I was a DJ, right?
Mm-hmm.
Melissa, my instructor, had never seen someone do this. Before the certification was over, I had rented an office, gotten a website, which back then, was cutting edge,
Right.
had business cards, brochures. I had to install a telephone because we didn't have cell phones, as
Mm-hmm.
widely opportunity that back then. I just took that leap. I knew I had no business experience, but I knew this was what I was called to do. And I knew that on the first day of the training. So this is my dream come true, right?
That's
It is my dream come true. And it's got its challenges because,
that's what I was going to say. So, what have been some of your biggest challenges? And do you
um,
deal with more women or do you deal with more men, or is it kind of a 50-50 split?
no, it's mainly women, a few enlightened men, and kids. I'm really blessed. I have a local pediatrician who has sending me kids for over 10 years.
Wow.
And oh my gosh, that just thrills me to no end because when I can help, I'm grabbing the picture here, when I can help this little cutie patootie who
Mm-hmm.
used to have to be held down by two adults kicking and screaming while she was getting her shots. And you see, this was the first year of the pandemic. She's sitting there with the mask on, calm as can be, getting her flu shot. When I can get them at that point, it changes the whole trajectory of their life.
Wow.
So, um, men, I have a couple of guys that I'm working with now. It's just, they're not quite as open to it. And I, I don't know why this is, I'm remembering this. I had an article in our local newspaper, when I first started my business, and I had these two men come to me at the same time that week because, they'd seen it in they had their arms crossed. They had the attitude of like, you're not going to control me. And I was a brand new hypnotist, right? So I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, let me see how I can connect with them. And I kept trying and kept trying. And now I would just laugh. And, I can't control you. I don't want to control you. And so I would pass on them. So I think that my practice is mainly women, secondarily kids, and then a few enlightened men.
Interesting. And what would you say when women come in and they say, "Oh my God, I wake up in the middle of the night, I can't go back to sleep. What's your number one technique that you share with them in order to try to sleep through the night?
Oh, I can't just stick with one. Can I say a couple?
You can say a couple,
Okay.
absolutely. Because
Okay.
I know
Because,
that's a problem for so many women that I
yeah,
know. And
yes.
it's a topic of conversation because you wake up and you're not your sharpest and you don't feel, like you've slept and you're like, oh my God, here I am reading at 3 in the morning, or what am I doing? And what do you
So,
do?
so the first thing is, do not pick this up. Do not pick up your phone. And I would venture to say that over 95% of people, when they wake up in the middle of the night, that's the first thing they do. And I remember somebody I worked with long ago, who I touched base with recently, who still practices a lot of what I shared with her. She was like, well, now I have to check my phone. I thought, okay, why? Right? As soon as we pick up our phone, it's almost like you're guaranteed you're not going back to sleep. The I have a million different breath techniques, and the one that I go to if I wake up in the middle of the
Mhm,
night, because I still do sometimes, is this 1 to 8 breath technique. And it's counting your breath. You count 1 on the inhale, 2 on the exhale, up to 8, and then back down to 1, and then up to 8, and back down to 1.
mhm.
And invariably, you're going to do this. And Caryn, you'll find yourself at 17, at 24, and like, oh, you just start back at 1 again. And because your conscious mind is so focused on tying the counting with the breath, it is almost guaranteed to take you back to sleep. It's
Is that like
really
counting sheep
phenomenal.
used to be, where they tell you to count backwards from 100, or
I
whatever that?
never found that worked for me though.
Yeah.
Right? So this 1 to 8, 1 to 8 is it's focusing, harnessing your conscious mind. So it's focusing on the counting and the breath, as
Mhm.
opposed to you're counting sheep, but you're still thinking about, oh my gosh, that fight I had with so and so, or what I did wrong at the office today. Right? So I would invite anybody who's listening, the next time you wake up in the middle of the night and you go to reach for your phone, stop and come to your breath. Ariana Huffington, Huffington Post,
Uh-huh.
she is a big proponent of sleep, and she literally sells. She's so like, get the devices out of your bedroom. She sells something like a charger that you can put on the wall outside your bedroom to leave the phone outside your bedroom and still have it charging for the night.
I was going to ask you that. Don't even bring the phone into your room. So you can't even just reach over and grab it.
If that's what you need to do, I do bring mine in because I have music that I play in the background. The background is like white noise for me, right? So I
Hmm.
use my phone for that, but I have trained myself. Again, I've had many, many years of practice with this.
Sure.
I train myself. If I wake up, I know now, like if I were to reach for my phone, I would recoil because I would know that's it, I'm done for the night.
So are you a big proponent of bedtime routines, where you stop looking at things an hour before, you shut it off, no television in the bedroom, no phone, no, all of that, or are you okay with people just sort of mixing it up, but understanding how to stop that in the middle of the night if in fact they are waking up or not sleeping?
Choice number two, because the first one is a one size fits all, and it doesn't, right? A lot of people put a lot of weight on during the pandemic, and I actually managed to drop 40 pounds in,
Wow,
in
congrats.
the past couple of years. Thank you. So most of my clothes don't fit right now, right? One size doesn't fit all. So if I were to say, do this, do this, do this, maybe it would work for you, maybe it wouldn't. Let's play around and okay, let's work on this for this week and see how that goes. Great, that was working. Let's add on to it. Oh, that wasn't working. How about if we try this instead? So it really is finding what works best for you, taking all these different approaches, whether it's from
Mhm.
my book or from other sources, but taking it not as the gospel, but okay, here's what worked for some people, will this work for me? I if you're watching the news before bed, I have a feeling that's going to not set you up for a good night's sleep because you're exciting your nervous system.
Right.
If you're watching something that's like nature or soothing or whatever, that's a different story. But then there's a whole other thing with the blue light, which I don't
Right.
even want to get into.
Exactly. I'm not even going to go to where, I am, but in general, it's definitely a challenge, I think, for women, waking up and having the Sunday night scaries and all of those things in terms of, planning ahead and trying to shut their brain off and being in those situations and really learning how to manage those. And I think, there's so many discussions around mindset and how that helps and around, living in abundance and having gratitude and all of those different ways to help you focus on where your energy flows and where it goes. So I think that's great. I'm going to ask you a question about, if there were a few things that someone had shared with you prior to doing this and going down that path, and it sounds like you went moving down that path, that would have helped you and would have made it easier, what would they be, and what would you want to share with someone to think about, before they sort of take a leap and go down a path?
Um, I wish that I had had some idea of business. Understand, it's not like, a lot of people come out of corporate and then they go into doing their own business. So they have some concept of business. I didn't. I showed up and played and got paid for it, right? So here now I'm launching this business. And fortunately, I listened to my intuition and I did well. I was in the black from the beginning, which is kind of unheard of, the number of businesses
Hmm.
that fail in the first 5 years.
Hmm.
Um, I would have really enjoyed if I had had a business idea, if I'd had like at least some kind of a small course on helping me to understand business. I was just going on a wing and a prayer, and thankfully it has paid off. But if somebody is on the
So from
fence
the
and
financial perspectives or, managing your marketing, or, I mean, what aspects of business do you think would have helped you or would help you today that you feel like you wish you had?
well, probably a combination of a lot of things that you just mentioned, that you just touched on about, business. I had no clue about how to run a business. I just, something as simple as get paid up front, right? I was going session by session. I'd have people pay me, at the end of the session. There were a lot of hours I sat in my office because they didn't show up. And so then I didn't get paid. So even something simple like that of,
Hmm.
oh, you just get their credit card and get them to pay up front. The marketing, I didn't know. I was out there promoting hypnosis. And people aren't buying hypnosis. They're buying the results for them. They want to know what's in it for them. And it took me many years to figure that out.
Hmm. All right. So today, how do you market? How do you find your clients, and how can people find you so that they can work with you?
Thank you. So how I market now is for social media. The only thing I'm on is here, LinkedIn. Social media, we have a different relationship. I have a different relationship with social media. So
Hmm.
I do LinkedIn, which I find is a really great place to be hanging out. But then also it's through making connections, because that's what it's about. It's not about, let me go to a networking event. How many business cards can I get? That's old school. And I think that especially because of the last few years, I think people are starving for connection. They're really
Hmm.
craving to have connection. So I'm having some really wonderful conversations like this with you. But then
Hmm.
also, I had a connection, a reconnection with somebody I haven't talked to probably for 10 years this morning. And
So referrals. So basically connecting with people, having them understand what you're doing, and sharing what you're doing with them, and hopefully getting referrals through people just saying, "Oh my God, I think you could help so and so," or "I'd love for you to meet them."
yes. Yeah. And that's and being open, not going into it of let me have this conversation so I can get a referral, but just having a conversation and remembering that we have two ears and one mouth for a reason. To actually listen. People are craving for us to listen, to be heard, right? So to get on a conversation and really listen to someone, and maybe nothing comes of it, or maybe 5 years later we get an email from somebody saying, "Hey, and what happened the other day? Hey, Stephanie, I think you can help my friend so and so." So if somebody is like, okay, you're struggling and, what do I do? Um,
Hmm.
Make connections, make those connections your priority. And to connect with me, you can find me at my website. Look at the spelling, stephaniedalfonzo.com. Not the easiest to try and remember, but this is the number 5 easyways to calm anxiety.com. And I'll send you 5 of the techniques from my book, Goodbye Anxiety, Hello Freedom.
All right. Well, goodbye. Here's the book in case you want to pick up the book. Let's see. I think it's right there. Goodbye Anxiety, Hello Freedom. And I know what my reading is going to be over Thanksgiving, and I look
Awesome.
forward to doing that. It's been such a pleasure having you on here. I know that I don't know anyone that doesn't need to read what's in this book, or try to find the different ways that calm them down and remove some of that stress. And life's going to happen, and you're right. We have to learn how to manage life as it's happening and be in that moment and be grateful for what we have. And I'm grateful for meeting you. I'm grateful for you taking the time to spend with me today, and I look forward to hopefully meeting you in person and connecting with other folks that we meet mutually. So thank you so much,
Thanks,
Stephanie, for
Caryn.
being here. It's my pleasure to have you, and I hope everyone has at least learned one technique or think about one technique today that will help them. So take care, have a great day, and I look forward to seeing you next week. And happy Thanksgiving to everybody. Thank
Happy
you.
Thanksgiving. Thank you, Caryn.